Welcome friends, Josh here from Squibler. Have you ever felt like there's something missing from your characters? You notice they lack dimension. For some reason, they don't feel like real people. You've wondered, how can you bring them to life, but what's missing? The answer may lie in the beliefs of your character, more specifically, their misbelief. Understanding the misbelief of your protagonist is fundamental in making your story work. Most writers overlook this element of character building when crafting their stories. Your character's misbelief is also referred to as the lie they tell themselves. This is a central belief they have that is holding them back, a lie they believe due to events in their past. Your story will aim to challenge this belief. Today we'll be exploring how to find your character's misbelief. We'll take a look at a step-by-step guide to help you figure out how a misbelief can elevate your story. A typical story is structured around the arc of a character. This is what drives any story. And readers expect to see the central character undergo a dramatic change. This can be a positive or negative change. Remember, your character should be drastically different from who they were at the start of the story. This is where the character's misbelief comes into play. By the end of your story, your character will abandon their misbelief and discover the truth. This is the skeleton of your story, the foundation of your character's arc. Their misbelief is what needs changing, and without it, your story will fall flat. This is the missing ingredient of your character development you've been looking for. And first, let's go ahead and take a look at some common examples of misbeliefs. In The Great Gatsby, Jay Gatsby holds a misbelief that money can buy love. The author challenges this belief and causes Gatsby's despair throughout the story. In Finding Nemo, Marlin holds the belief that the world is too dangerous for his son to explore. It's only by going on the journey to find Nemo that he realizes that he was wrong. And this is how he develops. Now, here you understand what a misbelief is. How can you implement it in your own writing? So here's a step-by-step guide discovering your character's misbelief and propelling your story to greatness. Step 1, find your story's main theme. Your character's misbelief can come in many forms. In order to find out what it is, you must first decide on your story's central theme of the story's truth. This is the story's truth, the opposite of the lie your character tells themselves. By the end of the story, the character will come to realize this truth. Find the theme you want to explore. Good versus evil, love, redemption. Let's take revenge as an example. Many stories deal with the theme of revenge. The message these stories try to express is that revenge isn't the answer. Revenge only leads to more destruction and dissatisfaction for the character. The misbelief of a character in a story about revenge could be as simple as, revenge will bring me peace at last. If you're struggling to find your story's main theme, brainstorm some ideas based on these prompts here. What are some habits or behaviors you've changed about yourself or would like to change? If you could change anything about the world, then what would it be? What is a message you want to share with the world? Don't stress too much over these ideas initially. Try first to get as many ideas as you can down on paper, and the central theme will begin to form. Trust the process. Step 2, flip the truth upside down and make it a lie. The next step to finding your character's misbelief is to find the opposite of your story's theme. Your central character represents the opposite of your story's truth. You want them to change by aligning with the message of the story. By the end of the story, you want them to discover this truth and shed their misbelief. Again, we take the theme of revenge. The message is that revenge isn't the answer. The opposite of this truth is revenge is the only answer. This might seem simple, but it works. Your character's misbelief that revenge is the only way to find peace will drive the plot forward. Until the climax of the story, when your character realizes that revenge won't solve anything. Step 3, consider where this misbelief originates from. The next step is figuring out where this misbelief came from. Was it something in their childhood that caused them to think that way? A significant trauma that changed their life forever? A devastating heartbreak? The death of someone that they loved? There are so many different places a misbelief can originate from. The reader needs to understand how the character could form this belief due to past events. Writing these ideas down will help them form a compelling character backstory. In step 4, write the backstory scene that caused the false belief. Writing a scene that informed your character's misbelief will give your readers insight into their inner conflict. It's all about showing and not telling. This could be a singular impact scene in their past, or a series of events that chipped away at your character. It could be a flashback or the scene that starts your story. It could be a fragmented memories of a moment that they don't completely remember that they are piecing together. The thing about trauma is that it has an unconscious effect on our behavior. Your character doesn't have to know essentially why they behave the way that they do. The audience, however, should have some insight. In step 5, write other scenes in the character's past that reinforces this belief. Now that you've figured out where the misbelief came from, it's time to reinforce this belief. The experiences of your character have strengthened their beliefs. Things keep going wrong for them. They might believe they aren't capable of being loved. Another rejection could cement this belief. Map out these scenes and watch your character's backstory get more and more interesting. In step 6, why is a character unhappy because of their misbelief? Your character's misbelief is the number one thing that should be holding them back. Sure, there will be external obstacles, villains, or world-ending events. But if your protagonist doesn't change their misbelief, then they'll never reach their goals. Consider how this will manifest in your own story. How is their misbelief preventing them from growing as a character? Your character's misbelief is also referred to as a lie that they believe. There are several lies that your character could believe. As long as it resonates with the reader and pushes the plot forward, it can be a strong candidate for your story. However, though, most lies or misbeliefs fit into one of two categories. If you take a look at popular stories, you'll start to notice patterns in the writing. You may notice that the lie comes from one of two places: the character's inner self or the character's outer world. The distinction is found in how they lead to different forms of conflict. This can be a fine line because many stories are strong in both plot and character. Understanding the difference between the inner and the outer lie is about finding where the lie comes from. First, let's go ahead and discuss the inner lie. This is the most common in stories that are character-driven. Some obvious examples of character-driven stories include Rocky and American Psycho. The stories focus on the inner world of the character. This is where the conflict arises from. The challenges they face are within them. An inner lie is one the character believes despite the world around them. It could be pessimistic. For example, a character believes they won't find peace until they destroy the universe, or it could be a lie disguised as something even positive. A hardworking student believes they have to achieve greatness to win the affection of their mentor. At the beginning of your story, your character will fail to see these misbeliefs as problems, and your character's misbeliefs will determine the choices that they make. As a result, things will continue to go wrong for them. It's only at the end of your story in which they overcome their inner conflict and they make the right choice. Your character then realizes that what they've been chasing for the entire story isn't going to fulfill them. Sometimes your character's misbelief is reinforced by the world around them. This is the outer lie. This takes the form of an oppressive world that they need to overcome or change. An obvious example is The Hunger Games. Katniss Everdeen is on a mission to change the oppressive world that she lives in. The world represents the lie. The opposite of that established world is one where Katniss is free to do what she wants. Sometimes the protagonist is setting out to destroy the world, or they might aim to transform it or simply leave. So you may be wondering how this impacts the character arc. The important distinction between the outer and inner lie is the origin of the lie and how it impacts the story. If the lie originates outside of the character, they may have a misbelief that it was imposed on them by the world that they live in. They may have a want or need that is aligned with what their outer world tells them that they should want. In The Hunger Games, Katniss wants to win the Hunger Games. She has no alternative because her world doesn't give her many choices. When she realizes that the Hunger Games shouldn't exist, she can overcome her misbelief. Character building is all about getting into the mind of your character. And by exploring their psychology, you'll begin to understand where their choices come from. You'll gain a better sense of who they are and create a character that resonates with your readers. The misbelief of your character is arguably the most fundamental element of who they are. Many writers refer to the misbelief as the fatal flaw. This is because it's the one thing holding them back. Think for a moment, let's say, about some of your favorite characters in literature or film. You'll notice that the most interesting characters are the most damaged and complicated. Something in their past has caused them to develop certain behaviors. They could have been hurt or traumatized. They then develop habits to protect themselves. The thing is, these behaviors are often dysfunctional or destructive. The fatal flaw is a character trait that prevents them from moving forward. They'll have to change this to succeed and progress the story. It's the ultimate and final obstacle. Often a character disregards this flaw till the end. They pursue another goal, for example, defeating the villain. As all great writers know, the story isn't really about defeating the villain. The story is about how the character will be changed by accomplishing this goal. This is often clearer in films and stories aimed at children. For example, Toy Story 3. Ask anyone and they'll tell you the story is about Woody trying to get the rest of the toys back to Andy. The story is actually about Woody finally moving on from Andy and accepting that he doesn't need him anymore. Woody's fatal flaw is his attachment to Andy. The villain of Toy Story 3 represents what Woody will become if he doesn't change his fatal flaw. The villain is obsessed with his former owner and tries to force other toys to abandon their owners. By the end of the film, Woody must accept that he needs to move on and look after the other toys. And here we have it. By now, you should have realized that most stories are about characters realizing they've been wrong the whole time. The moment of realization is typically found during the climax of the story when the character is confronted with the truth. And I hope that this helped you as a useful guide to getting to the core of your character's desires. Now that you understand one of the most important elements of your character building, the misbelief, you can get to work on improving your story. And I wish you the best of luck in doing so. Cheers.